Every day, 1,800 children are abused or molested. Eventually, there may be an arrest and successful prosecution. Eventually, the child may deal with the trauma. But it starts with the victim bringing the assault into the open. It starts in a place that the child feels safe. It starts here.
Hello, I'm Rhonda Hostetter. I'm the Executive Director of Hill Country Children's Advocacy Center. The center has been serving children of this area since 1992. We serve Blanco, Burnett, Lampasas, Llano, Mason, and San Saba counties. We are grateful for your help and support. Some of our statistics are staggering. 1 in every 4 girls and 1 in every 5 boys is abused before the age of 18. 1 in every 5 children is sexually solicited on the internet. Only about 10% of the children tell about their abuser, but about 95% of them know who their abuser is.
I'm a victim of child abuse. It happened when I was 9 till I was 13. It was my mother's husband. I found a little mole out, and I brought it in to show Steve, was his name, and he actually was in the bedroom, and he was undressed from here down. And I quickly turned around to leave the room, and he got dressed and came in there, and I was like, I'm sorry, I want to show you this thing I found, and I was 9. We talked about the little rat or mole that I'd found for a minute, but then he asked me if I wanted to see him again, and I, said no. And so he did that a few times until eventually I said, okay, and he made me just look at him, and then it was touching me, and then it happened for so many years, and it happened every night when my mom would take a bath.
When my daughter was 12 years old, she came to me and told me my husband, her stepfather, had been molesting her since she was 9. And I had no idea. She basically went to school the next day and told a friend, and the friend told her aunt.
I remember I was in 7th grade English class, and I got called out, and my aunt, who works here now, and a police officer were standing there. And I knew that they knew.
When Child Protective Services receives an intake of sexual abuse or serious physical abuse allegations, we will coordinate with law enforcement to have a child interviewed at the Child Advocacy Center.
I came to the Advocacy Center, and I had to sit in a room with angels on the ceiling. And it was just really embarrassing. They had to examine me. She told me if I felt scared or anything, just to look at the angels on the ceiling, and that really helped.
It's on our request for a same exam, which is sexual assault exam, and the nurses are the ones who do the exam. So, someone totally outside of the investigation who's trained specifically for that on children, they are the ones who are able to do that legally, medically, and it just makes it 100% of a case that we get someone's DNA that's done a sexual abuse, or sometimes child abuse. We can get their DNA from that child, maybe blood or something like that from the suspect, and we can get that from the child through the same nurse.
As a sexual assault nurse examiner working at the Hill Country Children's Advocacy Center, my role is to take care of children that have been sexually assaulted or sexually abused. In this environment, again, a safe environment for the child, and for the parents or custodians to feel comfortable that their children are being taken care of. Again, my role is to check the child, make sure that the child is healthy, well, growing, developing as they should. I also am here to examine the child, basically from head to toe, and looking for any injury. again, I do that in a in an environment that is non-threatening to the child. And of course, my goal is to not hurt the child. So again, we try to make it a friendly room. We have the room decorated to where the child feels comfortable. There is an examination table, but again, the child is comfortable with that, with this setting.
I generally come to the Children's Advocacy Center when a child has made an outcry of abuse or sexual abuse or neglect in some cases. And generally the first visit here with the child and their family is about having the forensic interview done. What I like about having that done here is, first of all, they're very, very good at their job. They do excellent interviews here. They get rich, full outcries from the children. Gives me a lot of evidence to work with. I really like that when I walk out of here, I've got a DVD that's got that detailed outcry on it, so we don't have to subject that kid anymore to detailed interviews.
My job is to talk to kids who have either been victims of child abuse or have witnessed violent crimes. Now, a forensic interview is just a structured conversation between a child and myself. There are different stages of different interviews. The first 5 or 10 minutes is usually building rapport, which would be, what's your name? What are things that you like to do? Do you go to school? Questions like that. Then we transition into the truth and lie, and that's to establish whether or not the child knows what the truth is. And then I have the child promise me that they're going to tell me the truth. And then we transition into the allegations, usually by asking the child why he or she is here, if they know, and then we will go from there. If they do not know why he or she is here, then I ask questions, general questions about the well-being of that child. Tell me about where you live, who you live with, is there anybody who could be worried about you? If so, why? Tell me about that. An interview is very structured around the child and what he or she can do. After the interview is done, I make copies of the video and audio recording of what the child and I talked about, and our multidisciplinary team members, such as law enforcement or CPS, who sit in another room and observe us, will get copies of all the paperwork that was done with the child and a copy of the DVD that the child and I talked about.
This is one-stop shopping, so to speak, for the investigators. They can bring the child here in a non-threatening environment again and get the information that they need to, and the people here are specifically trained to interview children.
I commend those who are here because they not only have a great job to do, a very important job to do, but their heart's in it, and you can tell that they have the concern of the child at heart when they do that interview. In some instances, if the child is under the age of 14, they may be the first person that child has talked to about this alleged offense. And so it's important for us to know what that interview contains, because that whole interview process and the interviewer herself may be a witness, as what we call an outcry witness. It's an exception to the hearsay rule. And so if we know what that interviewer says and what questions and answers she makes and receives, that becomes a part of the record, and we get to interview that, or get to introduce that in evidence at the trial of the case. And so my thought is, and my commendation here is, that they continue to do that job that they do so well, because we'll use that every time in the preparation and the trial of the case.
They also are able to receive counseling services here. And part of what is really great about that is that as we prepare for trial, we are also able to be sure that the children are receiving the services that they need to be emotionally prepared to testify. Telling about your last sexual experience to a room full of people would be terrifying for any one of us, but much less as a small child when probably your first sexual experience, and certainly not something you're used to talking about, and for most of them, it was not a pleasant experience. So it's really helpful that the children are able to continue to receive services here so that they are prepared for trial as we approach that necessity.
Family advocates encourage communication between all systems involved in the investigating and prosecution of child abuse cases, including law enforcement, CPS, the district and the county attorney, as well as the families, and trying to get them to all communicate and collaborate. Ultimately, our role as a family advocate is to advocate for the physical and emotional well-being of the child and the family.
I did counseling here, like classes with other people, other girls who had been abused.
The Advocacy Center was here to help her with counseling. It was a place she knew she could come at any time, and she did have counseling here. I brought her here once a week once she got back home. I myself had a mother's group I attended here for years, even 2-3 years after it all took place. I came here with other mothers, and it really helped know that I was not alone.
My job is to help children heal after the trauma of abuse. We use trauma-focused therapies, talk therapy, play therapy, and sand trade therapy, all to help children heal from the effects of abuse. We also facilitate a group caring for children who've experienced trauma, and we use that to educate parents about the emotional and behavioral effects of trauma, and to provide a parent with tools so that they can help facilitate their child's recovery.
Now, for the community as a whole, what the Advocacy Center does, in my opinion, it focuses this community on the welfare of children, the healing of children, and the prosecution of those people that are most dangerous to our children in this community. It helps the focus, it helps the awareness, and it helps get the results we need in this community to help make it one of the safest places we can for all of our children and make it a better community overall. I don't think we could function in a modern day state of prosecution. And what I mean by that is what we call the CSI effect. People watch television and they expect miracles from law enforcement and prosecution. And those television shows are based on entertainment, not science. But without the science and without the process and without the systematic approach to determining the truth that the Children's Advocacy Center provides, especially here at the Hill Country Children's Advocacy Center, we could not be effective in a courtroom, and we could not be effective for our community.
Community support is essential for this place to continue to operate, and that is sometimes a very hard job to do. In general, the public isn't aware of such a place that exists. When they learn about it and understand what its role is, they of course want to contribute and help, but getting the word out can be quite difficult. There's a lot of competing organizations that also help children out in other ways.
I've been here about 3 years, and Yellow Dino and I become really buddies because we go to schools and tell children about things that help keep them safe. We teach them about tricky people. It's not what people look like, it's what they ask you to do that matters.
What if you see a guy in town who wants his puppy found? What do you do when he asks for help and no one is around? Take 3 steps back, take 3 steps back, that's how you can begin. Take 3 steps back, take 3 steps back, then run like the wind. Tricky people, the tricky people have pain down in their heart. The tricky people, they can't fool me 'cause I'm too smart.
We use volunteers to help us teach the Yellow Dino program, and we're always open to having people come learn to do this and help us because it's a very important message to give to the children.
I tell everybody that will listen that I have the best job in town. I work with people that love doing what they do, volunteers. They work with us in so many different capacities. They help with fundraising, they work with the kids at the Children's Advocacy Center. They help us with school education in all the schools that we serve in our 6-county area. They decorate the house for the holidays and many, many, many other activities. We also have groups that work with us. They've actually helped us remodel the house or update the house inside. They've helped paint the house outside.
I love what I do here because through the years I have been in the business world and I like to volunteer. And I decided as I grew older, that whatever I needed to do was to help someone or do some good and enjoy it by all means. So I found my perfect niche when the Children's Advocacy Center asked me to serve on their board. So I am their slave, their volunteer, and I thoroughly enjoy it. But because I volunteered at various organizations around town, around Burnett and the whole community, I know a lot of people, and I tend to use the people that I know. It's called networking, I think, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And I have this group of friends that join me, and I have been told. Someone said, "Don't look Dorothy right in the eye because she'll ask you to do something," and I tend to do that. But I'm having a good time. I enjoy helping the children by all means. That's what we're here for. But I thoroughly enjoy all that we do, and I guarantee you that no one has the money to pay all of our volunteers for what we do. Their time and their talent and, by all means, their experience is just invaluable. So for what we do, we're well paid because we're helping the children. And that's why I'm here and why I'm having a good time, too.
The most rewarding thing for me is actually working at the Hill Country Children's Advocacy Center. We have a wonderful professional staff. Our multidisciplinary team is the best. And then I actually get to see occasionally the results of some of the work we do here. The children that we extend ourselves to are precious. They're the most vulnerable people in our area, and we need to protect them.
As far as funding goes, our center strives by asking for grants. That's one of our primary ways that we receive funds.
You know, there's not really tax dollars that are funding us, other than, granted, some of these grants are through agencies that get a tax base, but all those programs are being scrutinized, and we do have budgetary challenges, as we all know, in our government arena. So community contributions is just far more critical to sustain this process.
The Advocacy Center, I think it's a wonderful thing, and I think it needs to be something that's spread more. Yeah, I'm very grateful, and I think that you guys do a great job here.
Can't say enough good things about them and their operation. I think they're a tremendous asset.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
For more information on how to donate.
Okay, my name is Yvonne Evans, and I'm the founder of the Hill Country Children's Advocacy Center. It started, my husband was district judge in 5 counties of the 33rd Judicial District, and he so many times would come home and talk about how the children suffered when they were brought to court on child abuse cases, and how many times they had to be interviewed, and that sometimes all the things they went through was worse than the abuse. About the same time, there was an article in Lear's magazine that described the Children's Advocacy Center in Huntsville, and I contacted that one and found out there was one in Austin and 2 or 3 places, and we decided, I called a meeting of all the agencies that deal with children, whether they are CPS or juvenile probation or every agency, and we had a meeting and decided we really did need a Children's Advocacy Center. So we started it in 1962, I guess, or 3, started having meetings, hired an executive director in about 6 months, And then in 97, we built this really nice house. We have grown from seeing 69 children the first year to seeing close to 400 a year now, and serving 6 counties instead of 5, and are probably at least the law enforcement and child protective service feels like we are about the most important asset that their cases involve and that the children have contact with, I guess.
Donate your time, money, and love. Go to hccac.org.